Polecat Cast number 123. Un, da, trois. Who wants a master's degree in memes? Where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. We have a few great stories lined up for today, so mind your spines for the cringe, hold on to your sides for the lulls, and keep your chemo at the ready for this cancer. Today's Polecat panel consists of Max Darrett, Simpsons kin, and definitely not a member of the Yellow Lantern Corps, although that would be cool. Polecat Punster and Pussycat Punisher Hannah, Dr. Ranimer Cam Britton, it's pronounced Britain, Panda, Puppet Master, and Rabid long-range rhetorician, and myself with my Globus Cruisinger and Scepter in hand, the Supreme Doge in charge. Though today's topics might be frustrating for me, I will not be taking my ball and going home today. Today we'll be... You get it? Because I only have one ball. Today, we'll be discussing the following topics. Today we'll be discussing the following topics. Joss Whedon's ex-wife has accused him of all manner of misogynistic and predatory behavior towards actresses and fans alike. While I must admit I am experiencing near-biblical levels of schadenfreude after learning this, I think it's important to talk about in a totally not ironic or sarcastic fashion. According to James Damore, the man who single-handedly destroyed Silicon Valley with his misogynistic rantings and anti-woman manifesto of hate, Google sends out a weekly email that talks about microaggressions within the company. This is one of the largest corporations in the world, folks. And they are involved at almost every level of our internet experience. Just think about that for a moment. We always hear that about the terrible things that men do as evidence of terrible things that all men everywhere are capable of and really secretly want to do, because men are violent and brutish by nature. Well, how about a story of a man who was stabbed 4 times trying to save a woman? We'll get into that later. Many of our viewers have a natural talent for the memes, or for those of you who are a little bit on the normie side, memes. But did you know that you can actually get a degree in memology? Well, I have an article that I'm going to read for you that proposes just that. There is a new trend. Vagina nail art. This is the thing that we've all been waiting for and hoping for. Now you can show everyone just how weird ham wallets actually look by displaying them proudly on your fingernails. I guess the longer the nail, the more gape you have. I don't really know, though. Hey, as an aside, have you guys ever noticed that the internet is always trying to tell you about new trends that you don't actually see in the real world? Or is it just me? I've never seen any of these lacy man rompers, vajazzling, colored armpit hair, painted and ornamented beards, glitter beards, or any of this other crazy shit that claims to be a trend. So it's just weird that they say there's a new trend and it's hot and nobody's doing it. Anyway, finally, our bonus story for the Patreon-only after show. Not really a story. So, as you all know, I placed an order for Milo's book Dangerous from Amazon. And because while I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, I think his fighting on behalf of free speech far eclipses any differences that we might have. So I'm going to continue reading the book, specifically the chapter Why Feminists Hate Me. It's actually quite a long chapter, and it's been going on for multiple sessions. And it is a fun read. Anyway, if you'd like to participate in our after shows so you can enjoy this reading and also discussion that usually comes with it, either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And I have said all the things I need to say. So, Max, let's just get into it. Let's talk about Joss Whedon.
Oh man, I'm so excited. So, ladies and gentlemen, Joss Whedon, or as his girlfriends call him, Dr. Horrible, has reportedly been a very bad boy. In a guest blog post at TheWrap.com, ex-wife Kay Cole revealed some pretty creepy, sinister details about the 53-year-old Ron Howard lookalike, namely some hypocritical behavior regarding his supposed feminist ethics. Kay Cole was married to Joss Whedon for 16 years, and according to her, he, quote, hid multiple affairs and a number of inappropriate emotional ones that he had with his actresses, as well as his co-workers, fans, and friends. This wasn't revealed to her until a decade into their marriage, but all the while, Cole had her suspicions. For example, she was always uncomfortable with the, quote, attention Joss paid other women. He always had a lot of female friends, but Joss told her it was because his mother raised him as a feminist, so he just liked women better. He said he admired and respected females. He didn't lust after them. After having confessed everything to Cole through a series of letters, Joss said the following to her, and every one of his words outlines the workings of the stereotypical male feminist mind. Just listen to this. Quote, "I let myself love you. I stopped worrying about the contradiction. As a guilty man, I knew the only way to hide was to act as though I were righteous." Let me repeat that for you again. As a guilty man, I knew the only way to hide was to act as though I were righteous. God, where have we seen this type of behavior before? Anyways, Kay goes on to outline... The mind
wanders.
Yes, the mind wanders.
Schweizer!
Yeah, easy, Galvez. Kate goes on to outline the obvious hypocrisy here, that Joss has always preached feminist ideals while, quote, at the same time taking away Kay's right to make choices for her life and her body based on the truth. But she now sees, like we all do, how he, quote, used his relationship with her as a shield both during and after their marriage, so no one would question his relationships with other women or scrutinize his writing as anything but feminist. As a result of this experience, Kay Cole was diagnosed with complex PTSD. Not from being lied to for 15 years, but from the mathematically complex mental gymnastics Joss Whedon's mind must go through to justify this immoral, disgusting hypocrisy. Now, due to this controversy, a Joss Whedon fan site known as Whedonesque has shut down. Also, in unconfirmed reports, famed internet feminist Anita Sarkeesian is on suicide watch because her go-to coping mechanism of watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer while simultaneously eating tubs of male-tier flavored ice cream has now been tainted with the supposedly, quote, Gamergate levels of deception.
Dun, dun, dun.
She's currently considering several new coping mechanisms, including the superimposition of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's face onto a body pillow so she can rub against it at night, as well as life-prolonging treatments to keep Patrick Stewart alive. She's thinking of investing in those. Now, fellow honey badgers, I think we should ask Joss Whedon and his ilk the following question. I'm going to use H-Bomber Guy's words, okay? What is it with you people and sexual deviancy and or harassment? No, really, what is it?
I just want to say one thing before we get into the opinions on this. I want to make sure this is confirmed to be true. It sounds like he's confessing to it. So all this stuff that she's saying about Joss Whedon, is this true as far as we know? Because she could be making accusations, as feminist men who get involved with feminist women often find themselves on the receiving end of unfounded accusations that ruin their lives. So
he said, apparently in response to this, I can't remember the exact phrasing. I think I read it. It wasn't on the Wrap, but he said something. He didn't flat out deny it. He just said, "Oh, there's some misrepresentations here, but I'm not going to say anything because I want to respect my children and my ex-wife and stuff like that."
Feminist to the end. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with him saying there's some misrepresentations there, it does bring into question whether her quotes from him are quotes or whether she just made up things for him to have said, because and this is kind of hard to be certain on. The quotes that she wrote for him, or at least that she provided, those are kind of feminine in that, like the phrase "I let myself love you," that is something that I hear, that type of speech, not necessarily that specific phrase, more from women than from men. Men usually say, "I did X, I did Y," unless they're really, they've got something wrong with them.
It's
or
not
they're
you, it's me. I'm not gay, but I'll learn.
Yeah. They're active. Their language is active. And women, when they're guilty over something, their language is passive. It's less frequent for me, at least, to see men use passive language, even when they did something wrong and they don't want to admit it. It's, "I fucked up. I'm sorry. I did this. I shouldn't have done this. I made a mistake," or "I was selfish," whatever. Not, "I let myself do this. I let myself do that." Just, "I did it." So I kind of have my doubts and I would expect her to produce the note. But it's not because I don't believe a male feminist would do something like this, because like like you said, there's been a pattern of this kind of information coming out about male feminists. And it's easy to believe this without questioning it because we've seen it happen before. And I don't want to do that any more than I would with any other person. And it's kind of, I'm of two minds with this. There's clearly some hints that there were problems, but at the same time, I'm wondering if he did everything she's accusing, which, by the way, some of it's ridiculous. There's no such thing as an inappropriate emotional relationship. She's basically accusing of an emotional affair. There's no such thing as an emotional affair. It's called friendship, and there's nothing inappropriate about having friends. But though you can be codependent. Although it's not inappropriate, it's dysfunctional. But
yeah. Although I would say that women do tend to be more hurt. They tend to get more jealous and be more hurt by what they believe or perceive to be emotional infidelity than actual physical infidelity. And this is a tendency, and that has been observed. So I don't. Again, that doesn't mean that it's valid. But I'm saying that she could infidelity.
Yeah. It's a phrase that bothers me again. It's not a real thing in and of itself. Like, it's different if you're, actually going out and having sex with someone else, or if you're abandoning your family to spend all your time with someone else. And it's, even if it's everything but sex, and the only reason it's everything but sex is that you think, if we don't have sex, I'm not, doing anything wrong, but you're taking all your time, then that's questionable. And it's definitely a reason for a confrontation about your value of your marriage and stuff like that. But just caring about somebody and being friends and hanging out. I mean, hell, if I was worried about something like that with a woman, I'd make friends with her. There's a really simple way to handle that. Just be a part of the friendship, and it's a lot harder for the other woman to betray you when you're buddies. But in any case, you see how underhanded I can be now. And that's pretty much all women too. This is ridiculous. Not that I have some great love for male feminists or anything, but I don't want to go overboard with this. Simply because, like I said, innocent until proven guilty. And just because a woman says a guy said something doesn't mean that's what he said. Just because a woman says a guy did something doesn't mean that's what he did. And with him not coming out and saying, everything she said's true, I'm really sorry, or everything she said's true, but I don't think I was wrong, or something confirming it. And with her not producing the note, literally, I gotta have some doubt. That's reasonable doubt for me.
Sure. I'll just say this, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, because somebody can easily prove me wrong for this, but as I was doing my research before I wrote my write-up for this, it seems that the basics behind Kay Cole's allegations, like the fact that he had affairs, the fact that he used his feminism to try and get particularly involved with people that he worked with, that seems to be true. However, like the specifics of what he might have said in these notes back and forth between the two of them, what had actually gone on in the 16 years between when they got married and when she found out, that's all up in the air. But it seems like the basics are true. I'll also just say, just to go off of what you said before, when it comes to people's love lives, especially Joss Whedon's love life, generally, this shouldn't be a topic of conversation. Who the hell gives a crap what the hell goes on in somebody else's marriage or outside of marriage? But the reason why we're bringing this up is because we have seen concurrently, especially over the last 3 years, that anybody who identifies as a male feminist, not all of them, but a lot of them, have been publicly outed as being sexual deviants or harassers.
Yeah.
Now, for example, I tweeted this to Brian and Brian, in the admin live show chat, but celebrating the 3-year anniversary of Gamergate, I believe
Best mom ever.
Best mom ever. That's her, not her real
bot.
name. That's
the
mom bot. She compiled the list of people that journalists and other people who are vocally anti-Gamergate and identified as male feminists and were outed for particularly creepy behavior that was, for the most part, seemed to be actually legit. For example, there was Matt Hickey, Devin Faraci, Izzy Galvez, Glenn Fleischman, Jamie Kilstein of Citizen Radio. What else? I'm just scrolling down here.
Me too. See, there's Izzy Galvez. We see that. Anti-Gamergate author Sunil Patel dropped by publishers following abuse allegations. Tovahana, man charged in child porn case. This is, let me see, Christopher John Goldberg, parenthesis. And then Joss Whedon.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
Don't forget, I can't think of his real name, but he went by Unseen Perfidy on, and he was involved with Crash Override and all of the anti-harassment stuff, and then got outed by a bunch of the people involved with Crash Override for harassment.
Rob
and some other
Marmoleo.
Rob, yes, yeah, and he got outed for a bunch of behavior that was quite creepy, and he also, I'd seen him engage in similar behavior on Twitter with various MRAs, so this was not a big surprise to me.
Yeah, and for all of the names that we just listed, that's exactly why I felt the need to be so smug when I was finishing up my my write-up before just reading it out.
Totally fair enough. I mean, I don't disagree.
Because that fucking dickhead H-Bomber guy, he's all like, oh yeah, Rep Authority goes and punches somebody in the head, somebody that people like us don't actually really associate with or know much about. And he's like, oh yeah, maybe you guys want to work on that whole being violent towards other people? Yeah, that's one fucking example. Here's 10 examples of people on your side that are going around and being extremely creepy and extremely misogynistic towards women in the workplace. Who's the one with the real fucking problem here?
Joss Whedon's forehead looks like an IMAX screen. I just want to say that because it's fucking massive. He looks like it's fucking huge, man. But
Chrome dome.
I'm sorry, and there's a lot of neckbeard in this fucking. There's a lot of that, but okay. So let's.
Ron Howard wannabe.
It's pretty much like okay. We're gonna go with the. Let's. I think it's fair to say that male feminists are probably the people that need men's rights activism more than any other man. I think they need it the most. I swear to God, because it's about, if they were to really try to understand the things that we propose and the things that we discuss, they would actually benefit a lot from it. This, I think that with a lot of male feminists, it would appear as though they're exploiting feminism to get something that they want, which is women. And I think there's some truth to that, but I also think that it comes, I bet, that in many of these guys' stories, they were far closer to their mother than their father. They may not have really even known their father, or they had a stepdad that treated them like shit. And at no point in their upbringing did they actually hold their mother responsible for any choices that she made that affected their development. And as a result, they are far, forgiving and gracious to women beyond what they deserve. They don't hold them responsible for anything. And by consequence, they don't see them as equals because they don't respect them. Because they think that they're deserving of not respect, but blanket praise just for existing. And these shallow, empty sentiments of how strong they think they are, but they really don't. Because if they did, then they would treat them like people. but they treat them like their mothers. And I know I'm getting a little bit Freudian, and maybe, you know, that I'm not qualified to be like an armchair psychologist. So, but I get the sense, I get the sense that that's what it is in many of these cases. I mean, even when Joss said or at least he was quoted as saying that, you know, he always loved his mom and he was really close to his mom. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's not surprising. Like, I just figured right off the bat, yeah, sure, of course. You know, you kiss your mom's ass, and that's why in every film you make, you're kissing all the women's asses in them, to the point where it's blatantly fucking obvious. And so when it comes out that he's basically been, because I think it's a side effect of being a male feminist, it's something that you get to say. You get to say, I'm a male feminist, and then other feminists praise you for it. And they say, woo, woo, especially, and this is the interesting thing, you get more credit for being a male feminist if you're already rich and famous when you say it. If you're a broke ass, you know, dude with no job and you say you're a male feminist, you don't get as much credit as if you're like a super world famous film director that's got millions in the bank. Then that's a bigger deal. And that's the interesting thing about it is this hypergamousness within feminism itself, is that they're always looking at the people who have the most influence and the most power and the most social standing and the most money to declare that they're feminists, and those people get more credit. And for men, it's a really effective stand-in for actually being a good man. Like, to just sit there and say, I'm a feminist, therefore praise me. And then, like, you know, if you get it from some women, then you think, oh shit, I can probably get my dick wet. You know, and I think I deserve it because I'm a feminist, right? And so this is, I think, what comes out of that.
I think a good way to explain some of what you said is that to at least a segment of feminist men who are sort of the women worship type of feminist men, it's like all women are Mary Sues to them. Yeah. And they really don't, and it is a complete lack of respect.
Yeah, it's because they're cowards. That's why they write them like Mary Sues. Because they don't have the balls to write them like real people. Well, yeah.
I mean, real women. Yeah. Women that they can look at and are afraid to touch. We are their Mary Sues. They don't see us as we are. They don't see us as human. They don't even see us. They see the pedestal that they put us on. And like, I've encountered this over and over again. And it's like, when I was part of the pagan community, it was even more apparent and obvious. And you know, like, some guys that would consider themselves male feminists will take one woman and put that woman up on a higher pedestal than all the other women, and will go off on rants about how great she is and everything's strong and beautiful and blah, blah, blah. A la, was it Cartman's girlfriend, you know, oh, she's strong and smart and funny and blah, blah, blah. This is a typical kind of behavior. And it's almost like looking for a cause, like looking for something to worship, and they settle on women because mommy issues. And what ends up happening is when women don't live up to that, the fall is harder for that person, for that guy, than it is for anyone who, you know, might be around a woman who just expected her to be a human being with good characteristics and bad characteristics and strengths and flaws and everything like a normal person. Say, oh, you made a mistake. Well, let's see what we can do to fix that, you know, or hey, you pissed me off. You need to apologize, you know, or something like that. With that guy, she becomes a non-person. And I've seen that happen as well. And it's actually, it can get kind of scary. Mm-hmm. And because I've been on the receiving end of it, and it's every bit as bad as being on the receiving end of relational aggression from a woman. In fact, it's as bad as being on the receiving end of relational aggression from a woman for the first time. So I would hate to, I don't want to discount necessarily what his wife went through either, if what she's saying is true. Although I will also say that a lot of times when someone has gotten together with a person like she's describing, the way she's describing him, they both have problems.
Oh yeah, probably.
And the way she's, the way she's describing him with this you know, accusations that he took her personal choice away, and the emotional affair shit, that kind of tells me that, yeah, she probably has some problems there herself, as far as taking responsibility for her end of the relationship and for watching out for herself and basically vetting a partner for character and maintaining good character herself. So what we likely are witnessing here is the breakup of a dysfunctional couple that both had problems, which contributed to how bad the relationship ended up being.
Yeah, and they're going down like she's basically going down in a ball of fire, like she could be trying to ruin him, essentially. Well,
and this is what happens with this type of I wouldn't want to call it necessarily complex, but this type of wrongfully worshipful attitude towards the opposite gender. That does eventually lead to a blowout at some point in the person's life with a person of the gender that they worship. And that happens with both sexes too. It's extremely unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, male feminists, they probably need, like the men's rights sort of topic or talking points. They need to like get to know that stuff, because it's from this irrational pedestalizing of women that this sort of stuff comes out. You basically attract the kind of narcissists that you want to find, and the ones that you want to essentially feed, and then when it doesn't work out because you're giving them undue value without giving it to yourself, you don't recognize it in yourself, then, and then they go after you and you still cover for them. Because in a way, I think that Joss is covering for her too, because he's still saying, but I still respect women, guys. Pro tip, if somebody is making a point to say they respect women all the time while not actually displaying what respect looks like, they are probably either don't understand what they're talking about, or they don't actually respect women, or whatever group it is that they're claiming to cover for. So I will, just to reiterate, I don't know for sure that how much of this is true, except for what has been confirmed by Max. Thank you, Max, for doing that. And I'm basically just making commentary on what we know to be true. And it's also not surprising, because when it comes to male feminists, this sort of stuff happens all the time, and it doesn't matter how huge you are, it doesn't matter how famous you are, and it doesn't matter how invincible you write Black Widow, you still uncharacteristically or unrealistically over deify the vagina, and you need to like chill the fuck out. So if there's nothing else, I guess we'll move on to the next story. Can you guys Max?
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
I will say that The Avengers is still, in my opinion, the greatest comic book movie of all time. Debate that in the comments. And the best place to watch it, apparently, is to get a projector and shoot it directly onto his bald head.
Yeah, shoot it right at Joss Whedon's forehead. Make sure, and it'll be in 4K. I'm telling you, it's that big. So just enjoy. All right, so next story. We're gonna learn about Google and microaggressions. The Google saga as it relates to James Damore continues. Recently, James Damore was fired from Google for disseminating a memo that addressed reasons for the gender disparity seen in the tech industry, as well as a list of potential solutions to narrow the gap. Damore's memo, in general, addressed the ideological echo chamber within Google's workplace. Damore was eventually fired, the main cause for his termination being the creation of a hostile work environment. Since his firing, Damore has given many interviews, most recently meeting with Kathy Young, who is also, by the way, probably now an alt-right neo-Nazi fascist, because she talked to James Damore, and you know that anyone who talks to your enemy is clearly your enemy times 100. During Damore's interview with Young, Damore revealed that Google sends out a weekly email to its employees regarding microaggressions, asking for examples seen throughout the workplace to be submitted. In his own words, Damore said that, quote, microaggressions are being taught and compared to actual violence, end quote. One example that was blown out of proportion involved an employee suggesting to use a more attractive person in an advertisement to generate an increase in traffic via more page clicks. That's a microaggression because there are ugly people that exist and they don't like that. Based on the many lists of so-called microaggressions being disseminated through the public sphere, especially on college campuses, Google most likely receives many microaggression example submissions. Despite what some people claim about microaggressions, recent studies such as Microaggressions, Strong Claims, Inadequate Evidence by Scott O. Lilienfeld, I think, suggest that microaggressions have not been fully researched. Without more research and development with regards to so-called microaggression research programs, it would be unwise to continue to use the term microaggression until the MRP's scientific limitations are addressed. I can't believe we're spending money on this! However, it is doubtful that Google will stop its practice of soliciting examples of microaggressions seen throughout the workplace.
Okay, here's the thing. Microaggressions, I don't doubt that you can justify them as being real and that people can feel microaggressed. The thing is, I don't care if you're microaggressed. Suck my big fat yellow cock. Do you honestly think that anybody's going to be able to want to click on an ad if there's a big fat woman that looks like she just got beached because of a hurricane that happened down south? No, nobody's going to want to click on that shit, okay? It's just the way that it is. Sex sells. It's something that we've known ever since media became a thing. Christ's sake, microaggressions. You're fucking Google. You invented Google Home. That shit's amazing. Why are you spending your time on this bullshit?
Actually, I wouldn't recommend anybody purchase Google Home, considering Google considers the company considers itself to have the right to manipulate your political beliefs. In fact, to the point where it has come out that they manipulate what politically correct thing, or that putting politically correct things before other things in Google searches. So if you're looking for information on something and they have a political objection to the information that you're looking for, to the most correct information, they'll give you less correct information that they like better. It's the fact that the company sees fit to call scientific evidence, presenting scientific evidence in a discussion on how best to approach maintaining diversity at their company. They call that creating a hostile work environment, and don't consider it a hostile work environment to impose politics on their employees via a company email. The fact that they consider it appropriate to decide what information you can or cannot have based on political perspectives. The fact that after taking over YouTube, they've gone on a rampage against not people who actually are doing things that are illegal, but just people that are saying things that they don't consider politically correct. Again, that all tells me that I wouldn't want Google to have control through a device over even my garbage disposal, much less all of the electronics in my house, and have a device in my house that can hear everything I say. I mean, I think that would be, I would consider that to be dangerous. Maybe not necessarily immediately physically dangerous, but there's definitely cause for concern there. And it would be probably prudent for everybody that has considered and not purchased such a device because they don't like the way Google behaves, to let them know that. That I've already written, not that I could afford something like that necessarily at this point, but I certainly wouldn't consider it if I could. And I'm not even looking into getting anything like that, not from any company right now. As long as it's socially and legally acceptable for companies like this to censor information based on the political beliefs of administrators within the company, information that the public is looking for, no less, and to fire employees based on the political perspectives of the administrators in the company. I certainly don't want something that powerful in my house.
Yeah. It's it's kind of fucked up because I think a lot of us many of us want to find equivalent replacements for a lot of these internet spaces that many of us have grown to really rely on, right? Like, I mean, people want to stop using Google stuff. They want to stop using YouTube. They want to stop using the Google search engine. They want to stop using Google Chrome. I'm using Chrome right now, but I'm thinking, I'm going to change browsers. But the thing that's kind of unfortunate, and I know this is a bit off topic because we're not talking about microaggressions, but Google Chrome has been so convenient. Like, I have all my passwords saved and like all of my info for when I want to like fill out forms really quick and shit like that. And it sucks because I have to start all over, and I think a lot of this shit is I forgot, so it's like, oh man, what am I gonna do? And also, I want to make sure that if I change browsers, I get one that's as good, or at least close to it. Like, I used to like Firefox, and then Firefox started going to shit. So now people are saying, well, Microsoft Edge isn't bad, and like, I don't know, I got burned by Internet Explorer back in the day, so I don't know if it's better. Anyway, point is, if you guys know any good replacements for all the Google shit, I mean, we already have stuff that we're trying to move over to in terms of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube that we're looking at, and many of us have moved over. I know I opened a Gab account the other day, and Sargon has officially said, fuck Twitter, he's going to Gab. Hopefully that will create some kind of exodus. But when it comes to Google, we certainly have to vote with our dollars, which is what I'm ultimately saying. So if we can find really good alternatives, let's go to that, because a company as big as this, with as many tentacles in as many pots as this, that actually sends out weekly emails on microaggressions, is not one that I have an interest in supporting, because that is not going to lead anywhere good. That's not good. Once they try, because they have so much power on the internet, once they start flexing more, because they've already flexed a good amount of their power and desire to control, what people see, what websites pop up when they search for them, what YouTube wants to show them, because that is part of Google or whatever. It's just going to get worse from there. It's going to be more and more control. Hopefully the free market will create some alternative that will rise up and challenge Google, but at this point I think that we seriously need to consider going to other places. Unless, of course, you like working with a company that sends out weekly emails on microaggressions, which is a non-science, not backed by anything assertion. So just put that in your pipe and smoke it, because it's 540.
Just make sure if you support anybody else, just make sure the company isn't called Skynet.
Or maybe it should be. Could make life more interesting. I don't know.
Here we go.
I'm just saying, like, it'll give us something to do. Maybe people will actually know what oppression looks like when the robots come. That's what I'm saying. We'll probably
when the
robots
team up,
come,
all the SJWs will be the first ones to die.
Yeah, because they're not going to know how to fight. But I mean, like, honestly, Max, you actually brought about a very interesting conundrum. It's not even really a conundrum, because it's pretty easy to solve. If the robots come, all of a sudden, all the oppression Olympics will be over. We'll be like side by side with women and minorities, as though they're fighting for our very survival. And then we'll remember what real oppression looks like. So all this bullshit will be gone, right?
It'll be a common enemy. It'll be like the end of the
it'd be like Independence Day or something.
It'll be like the end of The Watchmen. I won't go into more details beyond that, because you guys should read The Watchmen, but yeah. Exactly.
So yes, bring on the Terminators. That's what I say. Bring them on. Skynet.com. Make it happen. All right. So,
how are you?
Let's go on to the next story then. Unless there's somebody that wanted to say anything else about Google, then I'll wait. Nope.
Nothing else about Google, but I will say this. I don't believe in microaggressions. It's bullshit. There's what gets described as aggressions there are not aggressions. Microaggressions is social justice language for the way I feel defines your intent.
Yep.
That's it on microaggressions.
Aggressions?
Oh.
Aggressions.
I actually just have one more thing.
Don't make fun of my peach amphetamine.
I actually just have one more thing to say.
Yeah.
Google these nuts. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, Google those nuts, please. Or nut. Don't be ableist, dick. All right, Keck supremacy.
Dick.
With the events of Charlottesville protests still fresh in everyone's mind, writer Narjas Zatat of website Indie 100 has taken the time to point out 9 symbols of white supremacy that you may not even know are white supremacist. Giving credit where credit is due, symbols such as the Ku Klux Klan, or Ku Klux Klan, I never pronounce it right because I don't ever have to say it very often, sorry. Related blood drop, so the KKK related blood drop cross and the Reichsschlatter, or Reichsadler, Imperial Eagle of Nazi Germany, do have undoubted ties to supremacy movements. Duh. However, other symbols on the list, such as the Norse Valknot and Sonnenrad, or the Sun Wheel, have more dubious ties to supremacist ideals. The list becomes downright ridiculous with the inclusion of the Kekistani flag. The Kekistani flag and Kekistan itself, a fictional territory created and made popular by places such as 4chan and Reddit, has been used to troll those not in on the joke since around a year ago when it was created during President Donald Trump's 2016 run for the White House. This isn't the first time the Kekistani flag has been mistaken for a symbol of white supremacy. Dan Siegel, attorney of the alleged Berkeley bike lock attacker Eric Clanton, claimed to the press that the flag was a symbol of the KKK after a court hearing. Despite having no tangible ties to hate groups or white supremacy movements, Kekistan and the Kekistani flag are still considered hate symbols by groups such as the Southern Poverty Law Center. And one other thing that we probably should mention, another person who suspects that the Kekistani flag is a symbol of white supremacy is Tariq Wash-Yo-Ass Nasheed, who had talked about it a lot on Twitter. So, once again, Kekistanis are oppressed. They are an oppressed people without a nation, and they are being demonized in the mainstream media by the Southern Poverty Law Center, no less. Please free the Kekistanis and give them their home back by Kek. Okay, if anybody has any thoughts.
I'm going to be really blunt about this. Wait, Hannah, not a mistake. They know they're saying something that's not true. That's not a mistake. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
I was just going to say, before we continue this discussion, I think it'd be appropriate if we all just participated in a unanimous praise Kek.
Praise Kek.
Praise Kek.
Okay. That's all I wanted to add.
And it's still not a mistake. When you tell a lie, that's not a mistake. It's a lie. I mean, we need to stop giving these people the benefit of the doubt. The Southern Poverty Law Center knows that they are mischaracterizing groups.
They're full of shit.
They've mischaracterized the men's rights movement based on like a smattering of comments that somebody said he saw and didn't even present proof of in various forums on Reddit. The entire men's rights movement has been around for years, including fathers' rights groups that preceded groups calling themselves men's rights groups. That were all smeared by the Southern Poverty Law Center as being misogynistic, and then by people quoting them as saying that we were a hate group, even though they didn't. And they never classified us that way. But the Southern Poverty Law Center says stuff like that about various groups, puts these labels on, published a map of the locations of numerous groups that they labeled white supremacist and other forms of hate groups, and there have been violent attacks against some of those groups. People have actually gone to the headquarters of various groups listed on that maps and vandalized the headquarters and attacked people and injured people because of lies that the Southern Poverty Law Center has told about these groups. So it's not a mistake when they say that the Kekistani flag is a Nazi symbol. It's a lie. And they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt for not knowing what they're talking about. Because when you say that something is a symbol of a group that people have said it's okay to physically attack, when you say that this is evil, what you are saying is, here, this is a target. The people associated with this are a target. Sick 'em. And you better know you're right before you start saying stuff like that. And you don't get the benefit of the doubt for being wrong when you say something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, this is getting so unnecessarily intense. Wasn't it like just a couple days ago, there was a story in the news about some woman having an issue with the pattern on the wall of a subway because it looked a little bit like the Confederate flag, and then she went into hysteria. I swear to God, that's an actual story. That's not a troll.
You got to get me that. I'm going to display that story. You got to get me that,
guys. I know there's somebody in the chat that knows what I'm talking about. Link that, and then we'll.
I'm sure. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but because of the hysteria that's being created around it, of course, you know, we've had the KKK in the United States for 100 years or more, right? More than 100 years at this point. And the fact is that, you know, they fell into obscurity for quite a while in the 20th century. They were still there, and we knew it. You know, but for the most part, we just dealt with them when they were a problem. But for the most part, they were a joke to everybody. You know, to most people, except people in the KKK and the people who sympathize with them, which is a really small and powerless group of people. This doesn't mean that we didn't care at all, but it just meant that, you know, the rest of the world have moved on and they basically stayed behind. And now we're seeing a resurgence to what I think is hysteria surrounding these groups, because I don't think that they've actually grown in power that much, although I do think that there has been an increase in people who have joined movements that are sort of parallel or somewhat similar, or the KKK themselves, you know. But the problem is that what we're not addressing is the root cause. If you have a rise in white identitarian politics, and you're not identifying that it is a response to a rise in left-wing, anti-white identitarian politics, then you're only going to create more problems. This is how we got here. It's because of the shit that the people in the media, the entertainment industry, the academic, you know, academia, and these like activists and the Antifa folks, and, you know, the Young Turks and Al Jazeera Plus and Mike.com and ATTN and all this shit are basically making it about that. And now you're getting, you know, essentially angry white people that are like tired of it, and they're dealing with it in different ways, and this is one of them. So if you don't acknowledge, firstly, that there is still undue hysteria being created by the media around this, to the point where a woman in a subway can be traumatized because she thinks something looks Confederate, or the woman that went to that one store in Seattle and claimed that the guy was selling Confederate flags there, and she became hysterical as fuck in the parking lot, you know, acting like her life was actually in danger, and all these other incidences, which normally we would have been totally tuned out. We wouldn't have even given a shit, or we would use it to make a joke about it. Then you have to accept that there's something going on in terms of like this stuff being ramped up, and then when the actual incidents or an actual growth in, you know, concern on the other side of people within, you know, that are joining the KKK, or they're becoming buddy-buddy with them, or they're even just doing something that's remotely similar, maybe not as extreme, or likely not as extreme, then it makes the problem appear more real. It's like this thing that's feeding itself, and it's basically making things a lot worse. And, you know, now it's spreading to other things that have nothing to do with it, just because these people take an interest in other shit. It's like with the Deus Volt and the Kekistani flag and these like Nordic symbols, they're not, you know, Nazi symbols by themselves, but they're being affiliated with it because maybe those people have that interest as well, or it's coming from something else. It's like saying, oh, look, you know, the KKK like to play D&D, so that means that people who play D&D must be in the KKK because they take an interest in it. So, you know, we gotta like, this is getting out of control. Because there are people, what this article is at the Independent is trying to say is that all these symbols are white supremacy symbols, and that is not going to go anywhere good, because you are basically saying it's okay to be violent against these people because it's deserved. And that means anybody with a Kek flag, or if they have a tattoo of a fucking, you know, the Valknot, which is a cool looking Viking symbol that, you know, you can see wherever, or, you know, I don't know, like whatever. It's just, this isn't helping, is what I'm saying.
No, in fact, what it's really telling us is that you can't trust at all any journalist calling any group a hate group now, because they just say that anytime they disagree with a group. And one of the things that I've noticed with this is it has switched from a fairly accurate definition of what a white supremacist group would be to a very different type of labeling. And I actually just wrote about this for the Honey Badger Brigade blog. This has involved, I'm going to read the paragraph that I explain this in. This involves some very serious mental gymnastics, including creative labeling. Labels were used to proclaim violence justified, things like Nazi, white supremacist, fascist, racist, misogynist, and extremist. Those labels were then applied outside their meaning in attempts to shut down all opposition to the application of authoritarian identity politics and law and policy. It has always been reasonable and rational to apply the label supremacist to individuals arguing that their demographic is superior among all humans and therefore deserving of greater consideration in a human rights discussion. The control left, however, applies that label to anyone arguing that the demographics men and white people are not for any reason uniquely undeserving of equal consideration. And that's a totally different thing. You're not a supremacist for saying, don't leave us out of the human rights discussion. You're not a supremacist for saying that if something is a human right, it applies to all human beings, and that includes group A that everybody thinks is privileged. That doesn't make you a supremacist. Regardless of how much people yell and scream about it, it still doesn't make you a supremacist. And if they're throwing that label at you for saying that, don't wear it. Don't accept it. Tell them to fuck off, because they're wrong. Yep. Now, if you're out there saying that you've got a group, a demographic that is more deserving, well, fuck you. You're wrong too. And that includes feminists who say exactly that about women. We are nothing but human beings. Human rights apply to us equally to everyone else, and no more. And human rights apply to men equally to everyone else, and no less. And the law should reflect that. The same with race, the same with religion, the same with sexuality, the same with identity of any kind. And it's bullshit to call somebody a supremacist for getting upset that it is being said that because they're privileged, it's okay to infringe on their rights.
It's the most disgusting thing, just to say that somebody's a white supremacist without having any evidence to back them up, because it's like saying, yeah, I believe that, you know, there's something wrong with you because of something that is out of your control that you were born with into this world. Yes, I am that hateful of a human being. Go fuck yourself. Honestly, I don't understand how people can just do that so willy-nilly.
No, I agree with you. And the worst part is that, okay, we have racists everywhere. The racists exist. They're always going to be racist. If we mix to the point where everyone is like the mocha brown color, there will be people who would divide us by people who are slightly more mocha brown than other people. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, this is something we got to live with as a people, okay? It's disgusting across the board, and it should be. However, the worst part is that we actually have a media and academic industry and entertainment industry that is okay with some racism against white people. They're okay with it, and they actually promote it themselves. They have they don't give a shit. And that's the worst part, is that they actually go out there and they use that rhetoric. And that's why you have a rise in white nationalism. It is a response. And I'm sorry, but a part of me is like, well, I know, I mean, I don't agree with them, but I know where this is coming from. We need to address it. But they don't do that. And, you know, honestly, if this was any other group of people, any other race, and the same shit was happening, and they decided to, like, you know, become identitarians, or a group of within the community did, because I think that, you know, white nationalists and all that, they're still a pretty small fraction. I think most white people aren't really down with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that either, because I mean, I would in terms of, like, their beliefs, but I would not in terms of, like, the reasoning behind it. Like, I would understand why they would do that. And I think that the fact that this is something that is allowed, like, culturally in society, you know, in our society, in terms of, like, at least in terms of the instance mentioned previously, that is the reason why I think that is especially disgusting, because it's permitted. When the KKK gather, okay, and they go out there and they talk about, you know, white supremacy, like actual white supremacy, and there are people of all races that denounce them, and they basically repudiate them, and they say, these guys are full of shit, they don't represent my views, I don't agree with them, whatever. It's pretty much easily agreed upon. Most people don't agree with that. They have a problem with that. But when Black Lives Matter does it, when, you know, Al Jazeera Plus does it, and I just saw a video that they did the other day about white people, you know, that pissed me off, or when most other media outlets or academics write papers about, you know, about this shit, or people in colleges are having debates about whether or not they should just kill all the white people, or Cenk Uygur basically says, in 50 years there'll be no white people, and the crowd cheers, okay? Or white people will be a minority, rather, in the United States, and the crowd cheers. I'm like, that's fucked up. Like, how is this, the fact that this is okay with most people is the real problem. It's like, you know, the thing is disgusting across the board, but some of it is all right and some of it's not. That's fucked up. So
I'm not sure it's okay with most people. I think the problem is a lot of people are now afraid to speak up when they hear nasty things being said about white people. It's like, well, that's acceptable. They're the only acceptable group to pick on anymore. Like, Christians are the only acceptable religious group to pick on in some circles. And, of course, in other circles, it's Christians and Muslims. There are a lot of people that, you know, you speak up, you lose your job. You speak up, your neighbors do things to you. You know,
yeah.
You speak up, you get booted out of your social circle, whatever. Even if the things that you have being said in front of you are absolutely terrible and demeaning and so on, there are a lot of people who, for whatever reason, will keep their head down and not say anything because they either can't or they're afraid to. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that it's genuinely accepted. What I would say is that it's become mandatory in our society to act like it's accepted, and that's probably worse. Yeah, well, because if it was genuinely accepted and it wasn't just mandatory to act like it, that there's a chance to get people to understand that prejudice is prejudice, regardless of which direction it goes. Yeah. And like if we want to be a strong, diverse nation, we actually have to not allow for prejudice to divide people in any direction. It doesn't matter whether it's towards whites, blacks, people of a particular religious group, people with hair in their nose, you know, people whose eyebrows grow too close together. It doesn't matter. Our strength is, as in the United States, our strength has always been in our diversity. Our diversity of cultures and our diversity of backgrounds is what gives us the diversity of ideas that grows our innovation faster and makes us more capable of cooperative defense and cooperative aggression when we have to use it. We're actually, you know, destroying the country by doing this. This is probably what, God, I can't think of his last name, Yuri, it's his last name started with a B. He talked on,
are you talking about the guy from the 80s that was talking
about?
Yeah,
the KGB, the former KGB
ex-KGB guy, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and what he talked about was what we're seeing today was the goal of subversion tactics by KGB agents when he was part of the KGB. He predicted everything that we're seeing happen now. And God, I gotta look it up now. But there's like an hour and a half long interview with him on YouTube, and
yeah, we know who it is.
You got to look it up. You got to.
Yeah, it's Yuri.
You got to read it.
Bezmenov. Thank you, Hokibusa.
Right. Because what we've got going on now in the United States is we're not allowed to have real diversity anymore. We've got tokenism. Mm-hmm. When social justice warriors talk about diversity, they're not talking about real diversity. They're talking about tokenism. They're talking about having different groups for the sake of just having those different groups. This country was made by people coming from everywhere with the intent to make a better place, to have freedom, and to have the capability of living with each other and in the same country, in the same neighborhoods, and build something bigger and better and freer than they came from. And what we've got with social justice diversity is everybody has to be different, and everybody has to assume that everybody else hates all of their differences. We're not allowed to adopt aspects of each other's cultures. We're not allowed to share our ideas and everything. We have to keep them separated, and we have to have one of each, regardless of whether they're actually working at doing a good job in their work or being of good character and so on. We have to just bring them all in regardless. You know, when it doesn't matter if they're criminal or a saint or something in between. That's not diversity. That's tokenism. You know, and yeah, I know. I'm seeing them people starting saying, "Oh, Hannah's SJW" in the chat. No,
we know
social
that's
justice diversity isn't diversity. Diversity is open and accepting, and you don't get terms like cultural appropriation out of diversity. You don't get the idea that you can't talk about your thoughts and you can't analyze ideas and you can't have free speech in a truly diverse environment. You have thought police and stuff in a tokenist environment and a social justice environment. It's not real diversity, and it never will be. But they'll keep using that word, and as long as we keep allowing it to be a social justice word, then, you know, they'll own it, and they'll still be able to use it to beat us over the head with. So, you know, screw calling it a social justice term. Diversity is not a bad thing, but tokenism sucks.
Yeah, it's racist in the same way that male feminists that essentially pedestalize women is sexist. It doesn't treat them like people. It treats them like, it's like you're collecting, I don't know, action figures, and you want to have one of each one so that you could sit there and admire them, and you want to show people, look, I have all of them, and they're all different. And it's the same thing. It's like, look, the cast in my book there's one guy of every race. It's like Captain Planet and shit. You know, except that I added a trans person and like a disabled, black lesbian in a wheelchair. But you don't actually care about these people because you dehumanize them, because you turn them into categories. Like, here's the black guy, here's the Indian, here's the Sikh, here's the Hindu, here's the Muslim, here's the Russian, whatever. Here's the Korean, and none of it, but they're not people to you. They don't have their own ideas, especially if they happen to not be, like, if they happen to be conservative. They really lose their humanity. I have never seen people more racist towards minorities than lefties that realize that the minorities they're talking to are not leftists like them. They treat them like shit. So it is potentially racist in the same way that a male feminist is sexist. Because if there's a woman, we're talking about guys like Joss Whedon or these male feminists out here. By the way, Jonathan McIntosh did not waste time in seizing the one good man spotlight from Joss when this happened, but that's an aside. Because of what male feminists do. If they find out that there is a woman who is outspoken and not a feminist and actually says she's not a feminist, or worse, an anti-feminist, she doesn't just cease to be a feminist or a woman, she ceases to be human. They basically turn her into a pariah. They will attack, because they don't care about who you actually are. They care about what you mean to them. That's where the value comes from. I got a couple of super chats I should probably read out. Joey Jojo gave us $5. Thank you, Joey. And he says, they freaked out when a Jewish woman played an anime character. I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm sure they did. Are you talking about the alt-right?
Talking about ScarJo playing Motoko Kusanagi in Ghost in the Shell.
Is Scarlett Johansson, is she Jewish?
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, I almost said, this is really weird. This is something about Jews that I find strange. I almost said, is Scarlett Johansson a Jew? And then for some reason, I thought, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. And I said, maybe I just said, is Scarlett Johansson Jewish? But saying that she's a Jew isn't actually bad, but for some reason, it's one of those words. You know, Louis C.K. has a joke where he says, Jew can sound nice or like an insult, depending on how you say it. You know, you could just say Jew. Oh, she's a Jew. Or you can say you Jew. You know, and it's the same word, but the context changes everything. Marcus Payne gives us $5 and says, also, diversity was sold on the idea that it included different points of view, which is, of course, now anathema, whatever. You know, not allowed, because that's what they do. So,
yeah, between the concept of cultural appropriation and the fact that anybody with a point of view that is outside of the progressive, and that's in quotes, the progressive ideology, is not accepted. You really can't have diversity of ideas, can you?
No, you can't. No, you can't. Also, one last thing. Joey Jojo, it doesn't really... I don't know that it matters that much that they freaked out over Scarlett Johansson playing Makoto Kusanagi in Ghost in the Shell, because the movie sucked balls, from what I understand. So... And this cracks me up, because... You know, these people are so concerned with movies. Why do you guys give a shit? Like, why is that so important to lefties when it comes to casting and shit? I mean,
because all their activism is on Tumblr.
Yeah,
the movie
it's all about representation and shit. And I mean, you know what? I care about good entertainment too, but I think that I'm not trained. I don't think that you can change the world through entertainment, and I think this is what they believe. It's sort of like I did a fireside chat with a great comedian lady named Sarah Young. It was from a couple weeks back, and we were talking about how comedians have decided to take it upon themselves, specifically SJW and feminist comedians, that they're going to change the world with their comedy. And I think the premise of that is ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it, because I know that there are some really good ones that talk about really profound stuff, like Richard Pryor, and they can actually shine a light on some important things. But it's their approach, and their worldview does not translate well, because they're already working from flawed premises. So when they make jokes around it, they fall flat as fuck. But for some reason, they think... And as I think that a lot of media creators and these sort of SJW media people, they think that this joke is going to change the world. It's going to build bridges. It's going to change people's minds about everything. And then they tell the joke and it doesn't work because they took a giant dump on a group of people with whom they don't know, because that's usually how their comedy works out. And these pro-diversity, pro-social justice people who write comics, who make movies, who make music, they, direct music videos, they all think that they're going to change the world with the way that they do things, and that it's really important. We're going to put a female doctor in this movie. We're going to make a Captain Marvel film. We're going to do this, Luke Cage / Jessica Jones Netflix story, and it's going to change everything because we have the right ideas and the right point of view. And the problem is they don't do it right because their ideas are actually not good and they don't work, and it all looks really forced and preachy as fuck, and it's shit, and it fails. So you get, most of the time, failed movies that they're running on this premise. Like, what was it, Dark Tower? They were like, we cast Idris Elba as the gunman, and there were people who were like, I read the books and he doesn't look anything like the character. He was supposed to look like Clint Eastwood. Literally, like, he is Clint Eastwood, and they were like, fuck you, you racist pig, this movie's gonna be huge, and then it flops because it's shit. It was shit. Just like the Ghostbusters was just shit. No matter how much feminism you put in it, no matter how much Black Lives Matter activism shit you put in it, no matter how much LGBTQ activism you put in it, it does not stop it from being shit. So when it turns out to be shit, just fucking cope with it. And
they blame the viewers.
Yeah, and they say, well, that's because everybody's sexist.
What they don't understand, they don't understand, because there is a phenomenon where movies can affect the rate and direction in which attitudes change, social attitudes change. You can have epiphanies that are influenced by various media, books, movies, anything like that. Music can do it, but the thing that social justice types don't understand is how that works. And you have to start with something profound, or you have to start with something
the truth.
That is, well, and that's just it. You have to start with something that's going to touch people's hearts, or something that people are that's going to resonate with people. Something that demonstrates something that people are going to look at and go, yeah, I have witnessed this in real life. I have observed this around me. I can't believe I never noticed this before. You know, not something that you're trying to spoon feed people and shove down their throats that they aren't going to observe in their real life, because it isn't happening around them the way that you're trying to make it look like it's happening. And this is something that Hollywood has done for as long as it's existed. Hollywood has created media that has touched people. You know, I know they're going to make fun of the touching people in the chat. Because we have that kind of group. That's why my puns work. But in any case, this is kind of like that person that has heard a really great joke, and they go and they tell it to somebody else, but they word the punchline just differently enough that they've omitted the part that makes it funny. And that's social justice workers or warriors trying to make movies that profoundly affect society's attitudes. They're telling the joke, but they're changing the wording of the punchline just enough that they've destroyed the part of it that makes the joke funny. They got rid of the pun, or they got rid of the terminology that makes the punchline connected to the earlier parts of the joke or whatever. And they're going to continue to do that forever, as long as they don't realize you can't make something true by putting it in a movie.
Yeah. That's just it. Anyway, that unrelated, but I just had to rant about that because I see it so much, and it bugs me because it's like infecting the things I love. Except the Captain America movies are good. They don't have any of that shit in there, and that's why they're good. So, okay, next story. A terrorist attack in Finland left 2 women dead and 8 people injured, 6 women and 2 men. The lone 18-year-old attacker, who has been described as an asylum seeker from Morocco by police, surprise, surprise, went on a stabbing spree in a marketplace in the city of Turku on Friday. According to the Finnish investigators, it is thought that the attacker was specifically targeting women, and the men were wounded after coming to their defense. One of the men, Hassan Zubier, a Briton, it's actually the word Briton, I think, is a British man, but it's spelled Briton. So I thought it was pronounced Brighton for some reason, because that's what it looks like, but it's pronounced Britain. So Hassan Zubier, a Briton, was stabbed 4 times in the neck and chest. Mr. Zubier told Swedish Daily Expression from the Turku hospital, as cited by the Telegraph, he and his girlfriend, were strolling around the square when we suddenly heard someone screaming. I turned around and saw a guy stabbing a woman with a knife while she was on the ground. I rushed to help her, and I tried to stop the blood flow. I tried to stop the violent bleeding from her throat. Then he stabs me with the knife again. The woman was so badly injured that she died in my arms." End quote. No militant group has claimed responsibility for the attack, Reuters reports, but police are investigating possible links to Thursday's van attack by suspected Islamist militants in the Spanish city of Barcelona, where 13 people were killed. I wanted to tell this story because we all know about the terrible attacks that are going on in Europe and all of that, a consequence of the migrant crisis. But you don't see too many stories that tell of men that are desperately trying to keep people safe. This man did not know this woman. and he did put his own body, you know, he essentially suffered bodily harm trying to put himself between her and this stabber, I guess you would call. And I think that's worthy of some praise. So, you know, the woman died anyway. The guy was hurt, but he did try to do something. And I think that is one of the things about men that makes them great. So that's what I was trying to draw some attention to with this story.
And it actually, it might partly be why the attackers targeted women. This is something that we've talked about it a little bit before. And I guess I would, you know, you can almost call it the Spider-Man syndrome. You know, Spider-Man can't openly have a girlfriend because then all the bad guys go after his girlfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
When there seems to be two minds on this. You know, when the bad guys attack a woman, everybody thinks it's worse. Attacking a person is bad, whether the person is male or female. Obviously, it's still an attack, and it's still a person getting hurt. But it is true that men will come to a woman's aid before they'll come to another guy's aid. And it's true that you can hurt a man worse by hurting the women closest to him than you can by hurting him the same amount. You can hurt him in a more lasting way, and you can hurt him more deeply that way. And I've seen people target men's wives and men's mothers and men's daughters with cruelty specifically to get back at them. And so this isn't surprising that a terrorist attack would target women. What bugs me about it is I'm sure that feminists are going to think of this as a misogynistic thing. But it's not. It's just human cruelty. They're not attacking women because they hate women. They're attacking women because they want to scare the shit out of people.
That's the best way to do it.
It's easier to scare the shit out of people because when you attack women, because people love women more. So it's the opposite. It's gynocentrism.
Yeah,
it's a way in which gynocentrism hurts society, makes society vulnerable, hurts women, makes women vulnerable, hurts men, makes men vulnerable, and that's it.
Yeah,
and it's very commendable that this man cared and came forward and wanted to help this woman and risked himself. That's heroic. And kind-hearted and a human loving thing to do. And nobody should ever say that it should be expected of a man to do that. But it is, on the other end of it, it creates a vulnerability. And it's a weakness as much as it is a strength. And so, as good as it is on one hand, it can be very bad on the other. And I don't want to take away from what he did or anything, and I don't want to take away from the perception that, you know, men are heroic in this way uniquely, because a woman might have let another woman die, or she might have called the cops or screamed a lot, but might not necessarily have stepped forward and tried to protect her. But it is this is a double-edged sword right there.
Mm-hmm.
Did we move on to the next?
Yeah. Let's go ahead. I mean, you know.
Oh no, I'm asking. Did we?
No, we didn't.
Oh, did we?
No, we didn't.
Oh.
I thought you were asking if we could.
Yeah, your internet took a.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, my internet committed Sudoku. My apologies.
No. R.I.P. in pepperoni then to your internet, but you're back. So on the third day, he rose. So I guess we'll go ahead and move on to the next story. I mean, all I can say is, you know, sad that the woman died, but he tried. He didn't have to. He suffered injuries for it. You know, you go, boy. So, all right, next one. I think this will be fun. Maybe we'll raise some spirits. So, I'm just gonna read this article because there's really not much you can say about it. Now, this is not real, although I wish it kind of was. Because it could, for multiple reasons. So UMBC, which is the University of Maryland, Baltimore County student newspaper. Okay, UMBC offers a meme degree, and the world weeps. Do you lack a natural sense of humor? Do you want to tell jokes that will be cringe-inducing and nonsensical within the span of a month of their inception? Do you want to give the world one more reason to hate generations Y and Z? You can do all of these now at UMBC, now that UMBC will be adding a new major, Meme Studies. Fall 2017 will be the pilot semester for a few meme studies classes, such as Social Ineptitude 201 and Technology and Practices of Field Memologists 143. The department was proposed by none other than Freeman Hrabowski himself. Weeks ago, Hrabowski was walking through freshman dorms when he noticed that many of the elevator doors and bathroom stalls were marked with the phrase R.I.P. Harambe. Perplexed by what he found, Hrabowski quickly dove into the realm of internet memes and became woke. He was further inspired by Northwestern University's recent decision to offer a meme studies major. Memes have become a language of their own and have the ability to bridge the thoughts and emotions between millennials and other millennials, said Don Aldak, who will chair the department. The Meme Studies Department will most likely be located on the 4th floor of the Performing Arts and Humanities Building, which is currently the home to the English Department. In the professional world, a student who graduates with a degree in meme studies will have the same skills and opportunities as an English major, so it's only fitting that we cram the departments together, explained Aldak. One Towson history professor, John Fogarty, expressed his support for the teaching of memology at UMBC. I'm glad to see that UMBC's administration is embracing our younger generations and their culture. I am down with Nyancat, Me Gusta, Challenge Accepted, and all of those hip, relevant memes, he said. Justin Keegi, a student at AACC and supporter of memology, said, "This new major really allows a lot of us students to cope with our lack of social skills and relevant conversation material with other generations. Honestly, I could talk memes with my frat bros for hours upon hours until I feel myself staring into the endless black void that I have cast all of my potential relationships and time into," he said, eyes widening. "Sometimes I can hear my loved ones calling to me from it. But yes, memology is something that college campuses need." After making this statement, Keegi loudly informed me that I had been beaned, and he ran away. Mike Shriv, a sophomore biology major at UMBC, expressed his negative opinions against the meme studies major. "I was never a fan of memes from the start. I know real humor. I know real culture. I watch Saturday Night Live. If I see one more what in tarnation meme on my Facebook feed, I'll probably write an angry entry in my blog. What isn't even a word, imbeciles," Shriv said. He then asked us to write a plug for his daily college podcast, but we kindly informed him that nobody listens to podcasts. Whether or not you support the study of memes, it may be here to stay at UMBC. Memes have become intrinsically woven into the fiber of not only internet culture, but first world social culture as well. Jen Mayer, a linguistics researcher at UMBC, noted, "Memes are the next logical step in the evolution of information and communication. We have grown so far from real human experience and into abstraction that we find a man sprinkling salt funny. The human race prides itself on inventions such as the wheel, medicine, electricity, automobiles, and the internet. I suppose it's time that we know, throw memes into the mix." And by the way, this is the end of the article. It's not a man throwing salt, it's the way he does it. That's the point. Go ahead,
Brian. I was just going to say, this is actually something that's real.
Is it really real?
Yeah.
It's
because
not fake.
No, it's not. Well, I mean, like, not this thing, but there's actually, like, at my university, for example, they actually introduced something called meme studies. And a friend of mine named Michael, he was actually going to take it, but then he took an arrow to the knee.
Oh, the sad thing is that this could be... This is something that could be real. Not quite at this level, but somebody deciding to come up with a course on memes or asking for money to study memes and things like that could happen. And the reason I say that was because back in the 90s, there was a professor, I think a female professor, asked for money to study Ebonics. She named basically the vernacular of inner city black neighborhood Ebonics, and decided that that was a language and that it needed to be studied and taught as a language, and so on. And at the time, you know, there was a big controversy over it, and people very seriously argued that this was a very important thing to do, and so on. And people could very seriously argue that, you know, meme study would be an important thing to do. And I would bet that today, if somebody presented it in the right way to the right group of people, they could get money to study how memes are used as a form of communication and how they affect the dialogue, the public dialogue, and whether they relate to propaganda and things like that. You could probably actually get something like that through, as long as, you know, at the end of it, you were going to produce a report with, you know, the right number of academic buzzwords thrown into it and enough letters behind your name to make it look reasonable and so on. And I'm sure that there are peer reviewers out there that would rubber stamp it and everything. So,
you know, actually, Hannah, you're not entirely wrong, because I think even with the stuff that we've seen regarding memes in recent history, while that's interesting, a bunch of people have actually shown me that the concept of memes and using them for hilarious purposes has gone back as far as biblical times. Like somebody actually cited, I can't remember, I think it was the book of Psalm.
Oh, God.
I was waiting for that. Now, I will tell you, this is on seriousness. I'm not going to make a joke at the end of this. But my dad was memeing before all y'all. He was memeing before it was cool. He was memeing before there was an internet. He used to cut magazine pictures out and actually caption them himself and put them up in the classroom, and it was hilarious.
Actually, I think
it used to.
You know what's funny is Stan Lee used to do that back a while in the 50s. Stan Lee used to have this, I think it was in the 50s, he had a series, I think it was called Say What or something, and he would take photos of, like, famous people, like, you know, candid photographs of politicians and movie stars and personalities, and he would put in he would caption them with word balloons. And
that's what my dad used to do.
Yeah,
and he'd do things like, you know, there was one with some singer with a globe on the stage, and he was standing so that it looked like the globe was on top of his foot, and Dad cut that out and put "ow" in as a, you know, real big letters, ouch, you know, stuff like that. But it was exactly the kind of thing that you do now with, and he'd have various. He did it to famous people. He did it to advertisements. There was the ad for, I think, the original Bowflex that made it, the picture that they put made it look like the guy had the top of the machine coming out of the top of his head. So Dad used it to make fun of having lots of body piercings and so on. And that was the steel beam coming out of the top of my head was his punchline at the end of that one. It is a form of communication. This is, you know, you could include something like this in a study of humor and communication and how that's affected, how it's affected. So things like this could be believable. Like this article could be believable to a degree, just because something like this could be studied in conjunction with other things that are being studied that relate to it. And there's always somebody that would take it too far and turn it into something totally serious. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, basically, like, you know, I think that one of the things that I took away from this when I read this article and had a good laugh is the fact that it's basically, you know, in the scenario, it's in the same department as the humanities, which are, you know, also have departments like the English department, but also have, you know, like the women's studies and racial studies and ethnic studies and those kinds of things. The takeaway I got was that it's probably just as useful for getting a job as a women's studies degree, if not more useful. Like, I think a meme degree is actually more useful than a women's studies degree.
Hey, at least it could be used for public relations.
Yeah, at least it could, exactly. And you could use it to talk to other millennials. So that there is that as well. And also, one other thing, as far as useless jobs go, you guys may have seen this. It was on the internet going around for a little while. There's actually a guy, there's a photo of it's a meme actually, and it says what I thought would happen by 2017, and there was like a photograph of like a flying car, something futuristic, and then it says what we actually got in 2017, and there's a picture of a bearded guy with problem glasses and sitting in like at a news panel of some kind, and it has his name, and it says emoji interpreter, like that's his job. He interprets emojis. So what we actually got. And I thought that was pretty much telling of the times. So, but yeah, good article. I had a laugh. Not entirely impossible, but still, chuckle worthy nonetheless. Are there Max? You want to get another joke in there before we move on, or we go on to the last story?
No, I
put you on the spot. Okay, all right. Let's move on to the final bit. Oh
wait.
What?
Brian?
Yeah.
We'll bang, okay?
All right. Last story. Okay, you guys. Like, MTV's new article says vagina nail art is here, and it's actually fucking amazing. So, like, we should, like, totally talk about this. Memology may be fake, but this, unfortunately, is not. While MTV is seriously impressed by nail technicians that are giving power to the pussy, I am less excited by screaming vaginas on people's nails and doubtful that this is truly trending. But let's have a look and see what you think. So, you might be aware that vagina nail art is here, and it's actually fucking amazing.
I'm gonna.
You might want to look at the link if you haven't seen it.
I did. It looks like somebody damaged somebody split the nail down the middle, and it's been pulled open, and it's actually, it looks painful until you realize that that's supposed to be a vagina. It's supposed to be a woman's genitals painted on her fingernails. Because that's all we are, everybody. There's no humanity to women. We're just walking genitals. And you're supposed to think about our genitals all the time. But you're never allowed to react to that because that's sexist.
You guys ever see that scene from the movie Scanners where that dude's head blew up? It kind of looks like that.
Yeah. Because this is what we want. I wonder what they use as a reference. Were they looking at themselves? Because you can get an idea of what you want and what you don't want from that right off the bat. Holy shit, some of these are awful. Why are there penises on that? Why? Are we gonna get a strike against us? What is this? Is that a vagina? It's screaming. It looks like something out of Adventure Time. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, this is like... This goes back to the thing I was saying before. I guarantee you that almost nobody's doing this. I guarantee you that almost nobody's doing this. And if I went out into the world and I somehow I got all the women that I ran into between here and like 10-mile radius to show me their fingernails, they're not doing this thing. So this is not trending. This is not a new thing. This isn't actually happening. I think, honestly, websites like MTV and others that do this stuff where they basically say, you guys, the new thing now is guys blowing other guys even though they're straight. You should totally do it. It's totally in. Like that, they're trying to manufacture this, or they're at least trying to draw clicks, which is, probably more likely. I mean, here I am fucking looking at it. But yeah, this isn't actually happening. This is not a thing. I don't think women want to do that.
Nobody anywhere is doing this. I mean, for one thing, you wouldn't be able to wear them to work. And at least not at most jobs. Nobody wants to look at a vagina on your fingernails at work.
You're assuming that the MTV audience have jobs.
That's true. That's true. And they're selling their food stamps to pay to go to the salon to get their nails done to look like vaginas. That's basically the people that are doing this. And to be honest, like I hate to be the one making fun of this because I'm lucky if I have the ends of my fingernails are not broken off to the point that all you see is just the part that is still attached. You know, not the part that sticks out, not the white part, which usually isn't white because I end up with like grease and stuff under them anyway. But so I'm not how women normally decorate their nails. I'm not really up on that anyway. But this is just dumb. I haven't seen anybody doing this, and I don't expect to see anybody doing it. And I certainly don't think anybody would do it that works at my job, because that would be very confusing for the people for whom we provide care.
Yeah, would you want to get money from somebody who has a vag on their finger? Or would you just, like, have this feel, especially if it's really realistic? Like, you know, there are some that are just going to be, like, nailing it, like, just getting it just fucking just right. Do you really want them...
Nailing it?
Nailing that vagina.
Nailing the vagina, yes.
Just getting it. Okay. Well...
I don't know. I don't want to shake that hand, is what I'm saying.
No.
What if you kiss somebody's hand and they have vag nails, does that mean that you've eaten them out? Is that rape? I think it's rape. That's probably what this is. It's a fucking setup. It's a setup.
You know what?
If you grab someone's hand, you're fondling their vag.
If a guy takes his dick out in public and a person who doesn't want to see it sees it, that person has the capacity to file a sexual assault charge. Why are women allowed to run around with their genitals painted on their fingernails?
If you do your nails, is that masturbation?
Yeah, these
it depends on where you hold the brush.
Yeah, these people who that put vaginas on their nails are not the type of people that I think I want to hang around with.
Okay, I'm going to read some super chats. I don't know what else to say about this. Okay, Joey Jojo gives us $5 and he says, did you guys read the article, The Place to Rant? It's called Ugly Creepy Guys, and it's about why lower tier men shouldn't talk to women. No, I haven't. I'll look into it. Thanks, Joey Jojo.
You go, Joey Jojo.
You go, Glen Coco. The Mind Flayer of Kekistan gives us $2 and says, Professor of Memology reporting for duty. Well, thank you for the $2. Yes, let us all keck together. Please show me your ways, O Jedi of memes. And Owen gives us $10 and says, I saw an article telling straight guys to get used to sticking things up your ass. Yes, I've seen that too. Unfortunately, I'm just not that kind of guy. Like, if you want, you can, like, maybe ask Peter Coffin. I think that's more his speed. I kid, but maybe I don't. So, all right. Well, anyway, I don't know. Any other thoughts on vagina nails?
He's lying, guys. He's lying.
So when you have vagina nails and you wear them all the time, do you have to paint them red once a month?
Oh, okay.
You know,
if you get pregnant, do you have to put, extra meat on your fingers?
I'm never eating roast beef again.
Oh my god. All right, well, it's time for us to go. We got to go into the after show now. Thank you, Hannah and Max and Mike, for coming out. Mike had to leave early, unfortunately. Shit. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry, my computer froze for a moment. I'm gonna quickly disconnect and come back in. All right, hello.
Hello.
All right,
yeah.
Cool. My computer froze for a moment. Go ahead.
I also just got to ask, if you're a virgin and you do this to your nails, you got to paint the hymen on, and then when you're no longer a virgin, you got to take it off.
Yeah. Well, while we're at it, if somebody criticizes your vagina nails, do you tell them not to get lippy with you?
Oh, I love you.
Okay, now we're gonna leave for real. So again, I want to thank Hannah and Scott. No, Scott's not here. Sorry. I want to thank Scott anyway, though. Thanks, Scott. I'm going to thank Hannah, Max, and Mike for joining me on the stream. And I want to thank you guys for watching on both live streams, because now when we stream, we're going to be streaming to both the Honey Badger Radio channel, which was our original channel, which we got our streaming privileges back on, if you hadn't noticed. And we'll continue streaming on the Badger live streams. And then when this stream is over, the Honey Badger Radio live stream will become unlisted, so you can only access if you have the link. while the Badger live stream one will remain live, so you can put all of your hateful comments and memes and jokes, etc., in the comment section on the Honey Badger live streams channel. And now we're going to go into the after show, where we'll be reading more of Milo's Dangerous. So if you want to join us, you know what to do. www. What the hell is it again? Patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And also go to Feed the Badger. And, you know, come over there if you have any talents, if you have any skills, if you have anything that you want to volunteer to HBR, go to feedthebadger.com, and there should be a volunteer button. And there you can share with us anything that you might have that you think will help. If you're an artist, if you're good with tech stuff. I'm actually not very good with tech stuff, if that isn't obvious. But I'm learning as I go, so I've been able to do pretty okay. So yeah, go there and then let us know what your skills are and see if you want to help us out. This would be really great. So that's basically it. I want to thank again all of my co-hosts and the audience. We'll see you guys on the next